Hello and welcome to Talking Point with me, Paul Bith. South Sudan has graduated more than 21,000 unified forces. The graduation marked the first batch for the implementation of the security arrangement as stipulated in the revitalized peace agreement. And now the question is, will the unified forces maintain peace and security in the Republic of South Sudan? And now, to shed more light on this, I'm joined on the program by the Minister of Defense and Veteran Affairs, Honorable Angelina Tain. Minister, you are welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me.
As to we are continuing with our discussion, Honorable Minister, now that forces are graduated, what is the next step as far the transitional period?
You know, we have in the training centers, we have forces totaling about 53,000. This is combined of the police, all the organized forces plus the army. So we've now graduated the first batch. We still have some centers that we need to graduate. We have Maridi, we have Moroto. This is in Equatoria, plus Awinkabul. We also have Penier in Upper Nile. We have Lelo. We have Tufgia. This is in Upper Nile, as well as Kaljak and Mom. And in Greater Bahr el Ghazal, we have Pantit. We have Masnabira. So all these forces await to be graduated. We are now we worked out a plan to graduate those forces. So, and we want to complete this graduation within this month. Once this graduation is completed, you would have now the first batch of the unified forces. The other step that we are working on, and we're going to be working on continuously, is actually the deployment of these forces. So the strategy on how to deploy these forces, and also some of the logistics for these forces. So these are the first couple of steps. The second or the third step would be now preparing these training centers for the next batch. So which means now the JMCC, which is the body responsible for screening forces from barracks and from cantonment to actually join the training centers, are already at work, and they have put their plan in place. As soon as we deploy these forces that have been graduated, who are still in the training centers, as soon as we remove them from training centers, then the next batch will join. So these are basically the steps. Then there's another important step that we are also working on, and this is the unification of the command. You know, we have unified the top command, which is the top echelon, but we have not done the middle command, and so on. So there's work going on to complete that unification process, so that at least when you deploy these forces, you would have a unified command as well as unified forces. So these are some of the few steps that we are working on.
Okay. During the graduation ceremony, the President of the Republic of South Sudan, General Salva Kiir Mayardit, said these forces are not for any political party. Do you think these forces will accept an Arcas National Army this time around?
There is no reason why not. You see, when the army and all the other forces got divided, they got divided because the politicians were divided. So now we have an agreement to implement. Now you see the commitment from all the leaders of all the political parties, accepting that these forces are unified forces, and they are actually the nucleus for our national army, our national police, and so on and so forth. So this is one big step. This is a political commitment, especially coming from His Excellency the President. So this is number one. Number two, the agreement also has provided for us to actually work out policies and white paper. These policies will actually help the transformation of these forces. So once you graduate them, once you train them, you professionalize them, definitely they will know that they do not belong to any party. And most of the training that they did in the training centers, remember we actually developed a curricula for them. And this curricula, part of the training was the fact that they are trained as a national force. So all the messages that they received and all of that. So we are very confident that we will be okay.
Okay, very confident, says the minister. We're still continuing with our discussion, Honorable Minister. Will the government and all the signatories to the peace agreement make good use of these unified forces as per now?
Definitely, the government. Let me not talk about parties, because we are an artigono. Yes. So when it comes to the forces, we don't talk about parties. We talk about the government. So definitely, the unification of the forces is a very important step. It's an important step by way of showing commitment to the implementation of the agreement and coming through, even though it came very, very, very late. It has really delayed, but is a very positive step. That is number one. Number two, we are struggling with security issues in this country. Once we have this unified force, it will build the confidence of our people, the confidence of those people who are in the refugee camps, the confidence of those people who are still remaining and lingering in POCs, the confidence of those people who have been displaced because of conflict in their places. So now they will see a force that represents all of them, and they will have the confidence. So we believe people will start to come back. Our only challenge now would be the fact that we have floods everywhere, and that's a very serious challenge. So it's even going to be difficult for people to go back home. So this is number one. Number two, number three, of course, with the extension, now the Artigono is working towards a free and fair election. One of the prerequisites for this is the unified force. To provide that necessary environment that would allow for that free and fair election. We are also working on the constitution, which requires, a space for freedom of expression and so on and so forth. So we believe that the Artigono would perform better having these unified forces, by way of providing security, by way of addressing some of these intercommunal conflicts, and by way of creating that environment that will build the confidence of the people for them to be able to freely express themselves, and also feel, that law and order is being enforced.
What impact will the unified forces have in the country?
Definitely a very big impact. Now these many intercommunal conflicts that are happening, we can now actually deploy a diverse unified force, which will be seen not as a force of a tribe or of a party. So they will definitely be just enforcing the law, and this will help. It will help by way of addressing those insecurities. So, which means we are moving towards stability and prevalence of security and enforcement of law and order. So the country definitely will benefit.
The second batch is said to be for 6 months, and the training period. Do you think this period is going to be respected?
We will do our best, because it is not in our interest to actually delay. Last time, there have been many challenges, including the challenge of issues of commitment to the implementation of the agreement and issues of political will, which we believe we have overcome, because it's been a while and people build trust as you work together. So the trust the trust deficit is getting lesser and lesser now, and by the graduation of the forces, you could say that the trust is really built. So which means there would be no fear. If there were people who were fearing last time that if you graduate these forces, it might not be into their advantage. Now there's no turning back. Now the forces are here, they will be deployed. So the only best thing to do is to actually quickly start the next batch so that they are graduated, so that we can get on with the business of preparing ourselves for the processes of reform, judicial reform, which is part of law enforcement, the constitution making, and all the other stuff that the agreement talks about.
Honourable Minister, absolutely, if we are to talk more on this, it's quite complicated at some point. It's when you are to look at it, the number that you have recently graduated is more than 21,000, and if we are talking about the deployment at some point, how easy do you think the deployment of all 21,000 unified forces will be? How easy do you think it will be?
Definitely it's not going to be easy, but you have to remember that actually this is not a very big force, because this force now is supposed to take charge of security while the rest go back into training. So you can imagine that number is still not a big number. In order for them to actually fulfill the responsibility of ensuring the enforcement of law and the provision of security at the same time, and ensuring the territorial integrity of our country. So it is not going to be easy, but at the same time, this force is not enough. We do need to actually quickly and speedily start the next phase.
Do you think the unified forces will respect and hold in case their salaries delayed?
We'll do our very best to ensure that they get their salaries. This is part of the process of building a new national army, building a national police. We have to take care of their welfare. We have no choice in the matter, and they have to be given priority, because otherwise, if you also neglect them, you would have issues. And after all, now that we have some resources that have been freed because war is no longer there, these resources should be put to make sure that this new unified forces are taken care of. So I would not want to speculate that they will not get. They must get.
Must get, says by the minister. Minister, we are now going for a very short commercial break, and we will be right back. Welcome back, Honorable Minister. We have been talking about the recent graduation of the unified forces, of which more than 21,000 unified forces has been graduated in the Republic of South Sudan, and the question has been, will the unified forces respect and maintain peace and security in the Republic of South Sudan? This is talking point with me, Paul Bith. The President reiterated his calls on the whole-out group to join the peace process. Do you think they will comply this time around to come back home and participate in the peace process?
Surely, I hope so. If they're really about the agreement and about peace in this country, then they have no reason to continue to remain outside. The whole of group, when we negotiated this agreement, they were with us, and actually, especially NAS, they have signed all the protocols except the final agreement. So, which means they have accepted this agreement. Also, in Rome, in the Rome Initiative, they have also been, they have signed a number of agreements, and they have agreed that they will actually be part of. They will be respecting the ceasefire, the cessation of hostilities agreement, and they were included to be part of the CITESAM monitoring mechanism. So now that we are graduating the forces, this should encourage them that peace is on its way. and that they should be just really thinking about how to come and join. And I really, I add my voice to His Excellency the President that let them, if I were them, I would actually use the opportunity of Rome to see how they can now become part of the Artigono. This should be the next step, because what else is left now? The transitional security arrangement are being implemented. They were always saying that, you know, even the agreement is not being implemented and so on and so forth. So this should build their confidence in the implementation of the agreement, and they should come and they should join. Of course, we don't speak on their behalf. All we can do is appeal to them.
What measures does the government have now as per the transformation of the National Army?
Definitely there are measures that are being undertaken. The agreement is allowing us to develop what is known as the white paper on defense and security. And then we have policies of defense and security sector. This is being developed by the Strategic Defense and Security Sector Review Board. This process is almost about to be completed, and this process includes a development of a roadmap for the transformation of all the organized forces, including the army. So they would have to develop a strategy, which is actually almost in the final stages, the strategy of the transformation of these forces. So yes, there are measures. You know, the security sector laws, some have already been passed in Parliament. In those laws, there has been some improvement, because remember they were amended by the NCAC. There have been some amendment, and this also would allow for the setting stage for the transformation of the forces. In order to transform, of course, we will have to undertake a set of reforms. Okay. But this will be spelled out in the white paper on defense and on security.
With the graduation of the soldiers, do you think the country general security situation will resolve?
Definitely. It will take a little bit of a time, but this is an improvement. You can see since 2018, since the agreement was signed, there has been a gradual improvement in security. And with the graduation of the forces, and as soon as these forces are deployed, I believe that actually the security situation would drastically change, and it will be changing for the better. Because you are going to have more men and women on the streets, you know, enforcing law and order. You're going to have more men and women who have been trained specifically to actually undertake the defense of the country. And their mandate is very, very clearly spelled out in our amended constitution, in the laws, and so on. Each with their clear role and mandate.
Honorable Minister, we still continuing. We are left with about a few minutes on this discussion of ourselves. We are winding up on it. What could be the general public hoped for these unified forces in the country? I mean, as building trust and confidence.
We encourage the general public actually to feel the confidence to, if you have an issue really, you should be able to approach a police officer with this problem, instead of, you know, it has been that the forces and the citizen had a very kind of, I don't want to say stormy, but a relationship that was not very comfortable. At the heart of the transformation is the civil-military relation. This is at the heart of the transformation. I really encourage the public to feel the confidence that, you know, this unification is basically changing a lot of things in our security sector. It's changing attitudes, it's changing mind, and training will professionalize them more, and we hope that they will even be getting better equipment. And if we take care of their welfare, then definitely citizens should be friends with their organized forces. So I encourage them to feel the confidence to actually approach their their organized forces for whatever reason.
Citizens should be framed, says the Minister of Defense and Veteran Affairs, Honorable Angelina Teng. As we continue, Honorable Minister, actually, if I'm to ask you, if we're to compare the general situation, comparing the other agreement that has been signed a couple of years ago and the current agreement that has recently been signed, of course, there is this peace process that has been taking its way, and more of the demands from the peace process and from the peace have been agreed. It's like a certain percentage has been reached. If we're to do the comparison between the past and the current, what more can you tell us on this?
Well, I can say that the roadmap, let me say, of course, the agreement that we signed in 2018, we continue to implement it, even though it's at a slow pace. Now we had to develop a roadmap so that we are able to actually work on some of the provisions, the very critical provision that were supposed to be implemented and have not been implemented on time. So we have created for ourselves now as a government, and also the public have supported this, a new metrics and new timeline that will allow us to actually implement those critical provisions that have not been implemented. You can see the improvement. You see, like now, I remember when I first came to Juba in 2018, sometimes you look in the street, by 7 o'clock the streets are empty.
Yes.
If you move around, you see 1 or 2, 3 vehicles. Now you have an issue of traffic. You go to markets, you can see basically, despite all the economic challenges that are there, market business is happening. There are lots of activities. It means people have come back. It means people have built confidence. This is even going to get better now that we have graduated the forces, and now that we are actually planning to deploy them. I believe as soon as we deploy them, you would see people coming out of the POCs. And so on. So I take this as a very big victory for the people of South Sudan and for peace in general and for stability. And we want to continue to strive to actually score more and more and make sure that the roadmap is implemented fully and on time, so that allow the people to actually begin to choose their own leaders.
Honorable Minister, what exactly figure of females in this unified process as per now?
Right now, I cannot tell you specifically the figure of the female, but I can tell you that, and especially in the organized forces, in some cases, actually, it has exceeded even 30%, 35%, the number of females that have actually joined the training during the last training. We hope that this will improve, but what you have to remember is that we are training forces that have already, we're not recruiting from afresh. Once we start the recruitment from afresh, we will make sure that in the recruits, we must observe the legal mandate of the affirmative action of at least 35% female. Right now, we are just mobilizing and screening forces that already exist, but the numbers are encouraging. Especially in the organized forces, really the numbers are very much encouraging.
What exactly could be your last message, as well as the general public is willing to hear more from you? They have been expecting a lot from you. They have been saying, why is Angelina keeping quiet? What does she have for us? What can you tell these people?
Okay, I don't blame them for thinking that some of us are keeping quiet, because there comes a stage where the graduation delayed a lot. There comes a stage whereby you don't want to just be saying the same thing, repeating and all of this. So we had to concentrate a little bit on making sure that this graduation happens. And this is what we have done. We are also continuing to work very hard to produce those policies that would allow for the transformation. We are also going to continue to work very hard to see to it that we implement the roadmap as agreed and as signed in the next phase. So what I want to say to our public, please, you have been very, very patient, and we appreciate your patience. and we recognize your passion. At the same time, we also recognize your need for really moving out of this transition and going to a more permanent situation of governance in our country. So what I can say is that we are going to do our very best to see to it that by the end of this extended period, you will have that opportunity. So you continue to be patient with us, and let's work together. Let's work together, even in the law enforcement. If the public is not cooperating, definitely you would have issues. The same thing for us in defense. You know, we have a lot of issues along the borders and so on and so forth. This intercommunal conflict, please, the sooner we have information of situations, the quicker we would respond to actually prevent crimes and prevent destruction of properties and lives and so on. So let's work together. Let us work together, and your security sector is going to improve and serve you better.
Minister, appeal to the general public to be more patient as they wait for their best service in the country. We have been talking about the recent graduation of the Unified Forces, Honorable Minister, and this seems like that we have come to the end of our discussion. This is Talking Point with me, Paul Bith, Honorable Minister of Defense and Veteran Affairs, Angelina Teng. Many thanks indeed for being part of this talking today.
Thank you very much, and I'm really grateful that you have given me this opportunity.
Many thanks indeed, Honorable Minister. Thank you. I appreciate the time I spent with you.